Electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Granosky. So glad to be back with you live for another journey through the news together. And we're going to do so on FM AM like we do. So if you're listening to our flagship station, News Talk Florida, across Tampa Bay and Central Florida, you're going to want to set it to this station if you're new here, because this is where all the action's happening in the Bay Area, in the Florida area. But if you're also on podcast, make sure you subscribe and write a review if you enjoy the show. That helps more people find the show, as well as our video stream listeners and viewers. Make sure you're going to Rumble to subscribe there. The other platforms that we're on are a little bit more dubious. They don't like free speech. They don't like intelligence. They don't like wisdom. They're very intimidated. They're very scared of science, very chicken. They like postmodernism. They like perpetual war. And so they delete and attack accounts that are critics of endless, mindless violence. So that's why you want to go to Rumble and subscribe to our page. Look for A Neighbor's Choice on Rumble. Subscribe there to watch our daily video stream of this radio broadcast. It's the best way if you want to have reliable access to our video content. You can also write a comment on our Rumble live stream where we can engage you directly if you have a question or comment. And that's the best way to do that. So if you are interested in staying abreast of all of our content, you can go to our website, aneighborschoice.com. That's aneighborschoice.com. We have an email newsletter. You put in your email, and we use that to give you content updates, because we have so much content coming out, and I don't promote it all on this radio show because I focus on, I don't usually do housekeeping stuff like this. I typically get right into the news. So there's a lot of content that if you're only listening to our radio show, you may miss online-only exclusives. And we also, a lot of our podcast videos that we do that are online only, we don't upload them all to YouTube anymore because, again, these guys at YouTube, they'll censor you for anything. If you say, please stop bombing people around the world, they'll delete you for that. If you say, hey, I'd like to make my own decisions about what I put in my body, they'll delete you for that. If you make facts about, hey, I think this is where this pandemic started, it maybe happened in this lab, or maybe the NIH, was funding that lab, oh, they'll delete you. I mean, so they're very disgusting people. Who wants to do a news report or a news show with intelligence on such fascist-like platforms? So we don't like to focus a lot on those failing platforms like YouTube and Facebook. So you want to go to Rumble or go to our website at neighborschoice.com. Joining me now to talk about the Afghanistan fallout is someone who is the proprietor of a newsletter called Hot Politics or the Red Pill. Sir Owen, how you doing?
Wonderful, David. How are you today? You sound very healthy and happy.
Yes, as always. And one of the reasons why is because we stay focused on the big picture as much as we can on this show. We don't get bogged down by the minutia. But I wanted to get your take, because you've been saying we should be out of Afghanistan for a long time. Let's go back. So the war started, 2002 or 2002? When did you first realize something was, if you recall, maybe, I don't remember when I first realized it, but maybe you do. When did you realize that the war was going wrong in Afghanistan?
Well, I think, I was a big follower of Ron Paul, and we basically have had a non-interventionist point of view really all my life. So basically, we were pretty much horrified by the way that we went charging in like a bull in a china shop into Afghanistan in the first place. There were a number of ways that could have been handled much more judiciously and certainly a lot cheaper, both in lives, which are the most important things, and of course in the unbelievable amount of money that we have invested or not invested, that we have squandered in Afghanistan. So from the very beginning, we were very concerned about the approach taken towards Afghanistan about going in. You know, you just know that this war, whatever they get into, David, is going to be, you know, once a politician is committed to a course, no matter how screwy the course or how convoluted and terrible it becomes, the politician really can't back up, because, I mean, he's responsible for this thing, and they keep going forward. And so there is a horrible perpetuation of mistakes that continue to just cascade. And now American wars all last a long time, really because no one has any incentive to end them. American casualties are low, especially now that the killing is mostly done from the air against peasants with no defenses. They've got no air defense.
Right.
America totally dominates the airspace. So no important American ever gets killed. And by that, I mean, American wars now, we have a volunteer military, are all class wars, if you think about it, with the dying being done by blue-collar people from Kansas or the Deep South, basically. Certainly not by Bush or Hillary or the Clintons or the Boltons or the Bannons or the Obamas or Blinkens or Bidens or Cheneys or Kamalas or Trump. I mean, they're not required to fight. They never will get near a battlefield. I think Napoleon once said, he says, show me the first general, the first monarch that was killed by a cannonball. Well, you know, they just don't get near the field. And so the U.S. public is so naive about the military. I mean, because most of them haven't been in. I have. And they have little idea of what goes on in its wars, because the corporate media now hide them. If you remember in Vietnam, we got all the coverage and the horrible coverage of bodies coming home. And, you know, of course, there were draftees in and people who didn't want to be in the war in the first place. But we have the draftees, we had bodies coming home, the papers, there was a perception that war wasn't going to be productive, and the people who were against that war were absolutely right. But the Pentagon, after Vietnam, they learned that the media was their worst enemy. And they feel like the media was their worst enemy in Afghanistan, not the Taliban. So they totally controlled the media. I mean, the narrative was 100% controlled. So we all sucked it up. So the one thing to remember, David, is that every military, ours included, at the bottom of they're immoral. They're killing people. I mean, they're going out and very cold-blooded. They plan how to do it, and they go kill people. The Afghans know of the torture operations at Guantanamo and at Abu Ghraib, right? And right. Americans, on the other hand, seem to dismiss such things now as minor, but they're not. And the Afghans seeing Muslims lying in pools of blood at Abu Ghraib or being paraded around naked in hoods are going to want to kill somebody. And guess who they're going to want to kill, David? I think they're going to want to kill the people who are doing that sort of thing. But on first impression, this whole Afghanistan is of no strategic importance to the United States. Now, I agree, it's a humiliation to be sure what's going on now, but the American public, if you think about it, they kind of wrote off Afghanistan when they elected a self-proclaimed anti-war, make America great, come home, America Donald Trump in 2016, because that was his platform. Now, he didn't do all those things, but that's why a number of people voted for him. And as far as we're concerned, never forget that an intact empire like ourselves in the United States, we're far from being, a crushed empire. And then any empire can come back from even the greatest disaster. I mean, there was Rome raised new armies after Senna, the Battle of Senna, I think it was in the 3rd century, and came back and destroyed the Carthaginians. And we had, who else? So the Protestants in the 30 Years' War, they arose after, 14 years of imperial victories to defeat Wallenstein at Lutzen, and they turned the tide, turned it back against the Catholics. And Russia recovered from its initial defeat in 41 to crush the Germany right after Stalingrad. So we're not, this is an embarrassment, but it's not necessarily an embarrassment. We shouldn't have done it in the first place, but it is an embarrassment to the American people, I'm sure, because now they're thinking about it and they haven't thought about it for the last 20 years. But in the particular instance of Kabul, I think the fall revealed, and this is really important, that the American military and the political institutions behind it are thoroughly rotten. They really are, David. I know it's a terrible thing to say. They're as rotten as Vichy France in 1940. And the reason I say that is Washington set out to create a modern democracy. This is their stated deal. This is their second stated deal. First, they're going to get bin Laden, and then they're going to make a modern democracy out of a tribal society. They flooded the country with an obscene amount of money. U.S. $2 trillion is a number being kicked around, but it's going to be a lot more than that before it's over. That $2 trillion, I don't think you know or I know exactly how much money that is, and I bet none of the listeners do. But in the case of Afghanistan, it was I read it was 100 times the country's gross domestic product. 100 times their total production per year. That money, David, went to Afghani politicians. It went to generals. It went to warlords to play act at democracy in a masquerade. That's basically what happened. And basically, in Afghanistan, what wasn't corrupt before we came in, or Washington came in, became corrupt by virtue of this deluge of snatch and grab cash. Mm-hmm. American soldiers, bureaucrats made fortunes. They made being consultants, contractors, sutlers, people who provide provisions to the military, armorers, guys who provide the weaponry, to all of this in the name of the fraud of Afghan democracy. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. In my thinking, the entire project was a hoax to begin with. Everyone associated with the thing lied. They lied about the state of the Afghan government forces. They lied about the disposition of the Taliban. They lied about the robustness of the supply chain for the military, to Afghan troops. They lied about their dependence on air power. They said the Afghan troops were so well trained now they could go out there and handle the Taliban. Well, that was all a lie. Mm-hmm. And Afghan officials lied to the American paymasters, and American commanders on the ground lied to their superiors, and the American generals lied to the politicians, and the politicians lied to us. So, I think, the key to promotion now in the U.S. military and to wealth lies in perpetuating a fictitious narrative. And the fictitious narrative was the narrative that motivated the occupation of the country in the first place.
Mike Cernovich, a commenter online, says, today's events will make it much more difficult for senior military leaders to continue their plan to turn their attacks on American citizens. The mask is off. The respect is gone. The lies revealed. It's kind of in keeping with what you're saying.
Well, that's exactly. I think I'm glad that your listener sees it that way, because I think this should be a slap upside the head for the American people to understand they've got to rein in this interventionist foreign policy. Otherwise, we are going to have a disaster. And what I think is extraordinarily amusing is they're selling this as they're backing out of this particular situation to refocus on China. Well, if they cannot beat a ragtag bunch of Mujahideen or Taliban, out of the mountains, they have absolutely no chance of beating a China or a Russia. Think about that. In other words, you've just been run out of a country by people with British infields and no Air Force, nothing, and you're going to go out and attempt to engage modern nuclear powers. I don't think that dog will hunt, David.
We're speaking,
and there's also,
let's take a quick break. We're speaking with Sir Owen, a geopolitical analyst on the fallout and what this Afghanistan end means for the American government moving forward. Stay with us. More live on A Neighbor's Choice.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Hello, this is David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck on a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLSID 1492187. Equal housing lender. A Neighbor's Choice returns. We're speaking with Sir Owen, a geopolitical analyst, someone who's has spent time in the military, and is providing his thoughts on the fallout from this disastrous blunder that the D.C. fools have made again. Looking at comments, Rick says, for me, I guess he realized the Afghanistan conflict was going wrong when we went into Iraq. Another says the industrial military complex cashed in. And so, when we look at this situation, it says a majority of Americans still support Afghan withdrawal despite all-out media effort to try to sell them on staying. That's according to antiwar.com. Then the total right now of people killed in this attack yesterday was 175 people. Over 175, including 13 U.S. troops. One of the soldiers, I'm seeing people post this story, he was 2 years old when the when 9/11 happened. So, I mean, what a nightmare, the whole thing.
Well, war isn't pretty, David. This is not a movie, or this is not a TV series. I mean, this is for real. And people go over, and young people who feel invulnerable, they join the military. I know I did. I felt when you're young, you can never die. Isn't that correct? You just don't consider the possibility that anything can happen to you at all. You feel invulnerable, and that's why young people fight our wars. and basically young people from the South and from other areas that don't have perhaps as many opportunities in life as other people. So again, this is the invisible people who go out there and get chopped up in this monstrous thing of warfare. And quite frankly, I wouldn't want to be on a war, against a technologically adept country. I would not want to be on that battlefield today at all. The weaponry today is mind-boggling. It's technology-driven. It's something I can't imagine. The sound of a battlefield is enough to traumatize many people. The explosions, the things that are going on a battlefield are just overwhelming psychologically. I mean, people, you've got to give them some credit for going out there and fighting, but I don't think they know what they're getting into when they go over it to get into these meaningless sort of engagements. I mean, back to in America, every one of those dollars, David, could have been spent back here. We have enough social problems in America. We have a crying need. I think that our country's first responsibility, I as a person, demand that our country's first responsibility be to its own citizens in this country. And to go over and just waste this money on war and these lives of these young people who could develop and become functioning and very productive and contributing members of society is just a crime that can never be punished enough.
Yeah. The Wall Street. And meanwhile, some of the fallout. We're almost out of time. We got about 2 minutes, but as China, this is a headline in Wall Street Journal. As China-Taiwan tensions rise, Japan begins preparing for possible conflict. Tokyo's leaders are speaking up about risks over Taiwan and urging closer cooperation with the U.S. So, in a rare moment, even though Japan doesn't have formal diplomatic relations with Taiwan, they lawmakers in Tokyo and Taipei held a rare meeting by video conference to discuss ways to boost ties. So there's a shift going on with this. This is not just Afghanistan. This is a big global movement of what's going to happen out of this.
Well, I will say this, David. Japan apparently has a suicide desire to tie itself against China. Do not stand against China, especially right in their front yard. I think you have to have a death wish to do that. Because I'll tell you what's going to happen. I believe this. China and Russia are going to pick up the pieces in Central Asia. They live there. It's very simple. They live there. India is going to make its accommodation with China. I think the Germans are going to do whatever they have to do to avoid a conflict with Russia and to modify their relations. I believe the Saudis are going to rely more on Russia now for their own security, and because Moscow doesn't want a Muslim Brotherhood government in Riyadh any more than the Saudi monarchs do. So we're seeing a reordering, but I'm curious about the timing and the Japanese Taiwan thing.
Well, we're out of time. Sir Owen, thank you for joining us on the broadcast today, live.
My pleasure. Thanks for letting me emote. I appreciate it.
Back in just a moment, live with Jason Jones with an update on what's going on in Afghanistan.
Hi, this is Gordon Deal. Join me weekdays for This Morning, America's First News. Hear the stories you'll be talking about and searching for all day as we go beyond the headlines and above the chatter with your first look at breaking news, money, Washington politics, technology, entertainment, entrepreneurship, and sports. We explain why stories matter.
The news and information you need to know. Weekday morning 6 to 8 with Gordon Deal on News Talk 1040 WHBO.
The risk to U.S. troops and Afghans near the Kabul airport remains high, with just a few days left before the end of the month deadline for U.S. troops to leave. White House spokesperson Jen Psaki at today's briefing.
The national security team the president met with this morning advised the president and vice president that another terror attack in Kabul is likely. And they are taking maximum force protection measures at the Kabul airport and in the surrounding areas with our forces as a result.
What happens after the deadline is also a growing concern. State Department spokesperson Ned Price.
We have a commitment to special immigrant visa holders or special immigrant visa applicants. We have a commitment to our locally engaged staff. We have a commitment to other at-risk Afghans that doesn't expire on August 31st or any other date.
No word yet on security at the airport when U.S. troops leave. Turkey says the Taliban asked them to operate Kabul airport, but Turkey's leader says no decision has yet been made. Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
News Talk 1040 Tampa Bay weather forecast.
Alan Archer at the News Talk 1040 WHBO Weather Center. We're watching on our Doppler radar showers and scattered thunder showers advancing in from the southeast. 65% here this afternoon with a high 93, 45% tonight at 77. With the weekend 50% Saturday, 65% Sunday. Chance of storms mainly afternoon and evenings with highs 91. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer for News Talk 1040 WHBO.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. We're live and we're following this Afghanistan withdrawal story as the moments happen. And to do so, we have with us our friend Jason Jones, who is an activist. He's a filmmaker, but he's also got a lot of friends in the area he's doing some communications with. Can you tell us what the latest is, Jason?
Yeah, well, as I'm talking to you, and the reason I missed the first two times the producer called is my organization, the Vulnerable People Project, has been very active working with our friends and American citizens in Kabul, trying to get them out. And today, and that's why I had to say I only got 5 minutes. Today, the Taliban has control of the airport, as was, I guess we were told it was going to happen. People are scared. We had an interpreter, and his family, who were after a week of trying to get into the airport, were let in. And then after only 30 minutes there today, this was after being at the Abbey Gate when the explosions took place. This was after being threatened and beaten by the Taliban. A week of running and hiding and scooting back to the airport, trying to get there. They were on a list, the State Department evac list, which was just now, I guess, a fiction. And so they finally make it into the airport a couple of hours ago when we were dancing and high-fiving here, our team, and then only to be then told that they have to leave. It's dangerous. Go, come back tomorrow. Through our private military contractor friends on the ground, we're told that there will be no more private flights, that the flights that are there will be processed and sent away. And by Sunday evening or Monday, I'm guessing there'll have been a complete withdrawal. And I don't know how we're going to do this withdrawal. How are the last flights going to come out? Who's going to secure them? Are they counting on the Taliban to secure their retreat? This is quite horrifying. So we already have American KIA, but what happened to the Afghans and what happened to our troops could be even worse. I mean, it's really. I was on Steve Bannon's The War Room 48 hours ago. I said it's going to be a very, very dark 72 hours. Been a dark 48 hours since then, and I think Sunday, Monday, we might see the worst of it for our troops. I pray not.
How many Americans are in Afghanistan that we know of that need to get out so far? What's left?
Well, I just got asked up by another journalist, and I have over 600 people. Many of them, I don't have any Americans on my list. I have permanent residents, though. I have several people with visas. I have a lot of interpreters and others who fought and worked for us on my list. So I don't know. I actually haven't watched any news since this has all started. All I've been doing is working with our people in Kabul, getting videos, getting footage, shoving it off to journalists, trying to get people into the airport, and once they were in the airport, onto the plane. So it's sort of those broader numbers. I don't know. I have 600 names in my head. I know the families, I know the people, I know where they are. But as far as how many Americans are left, I don't know.
I've heard that the Taliban has condemned the ISIS attacks, but yet I've heard other voices like H.R. McMaster say, "Oh no, I think the Taliban is working with ISIS or something." What do you have any information about that?
Yeah, well, again, I don't watch the news. I haven't been watching the news. But what's horrifying is people are telling me it's being reported in the news that those of us who work for organizations like mine that have been compiling these Excel files that the State Department gave us with people's names, emails, addresses, date of birth, phone numbers, passport photos, and in some cases even the coordinates to their house, I'm being told that it's being reported and that the Department of Defense and the State Department has confirmed that they gave those files over to the Taliban. Now, I don't know. But people are saying, yeah, that's in the media. This is what's happened. So when if I found out that I put names of infants and brothers and sisters and moms and dads into an Excel file that ended up with the Taliban, this is horrifying.
Wow. So I know you've got to run, but just any other final thoughts from what you're hearing on the ground? Because a lot of people aren't in a situation like you where they've got so many people directly connected over there and they don't know what to believe with the dubious media we have.
Yeah, well, it's going to be really hard to separate the signal from the noise over the next 48 hours. So don't go believing everything you hear. I think if you're sitting at home and you care, you need to pray. You need to support organizations like mine, the Vulnerable People Project. And this is not over. I'll say this, that my organization is staffing up, and we will be committed to exfiltrating our friends and looking at all the different ways that we can get our friends and partners out of Afghanistan and get them to safety. And then also holding the Biden administration accountable. I'd like to see, he has to resign. I mean, look, he has to resign, or Congress has to act. That's just the beginning. Get him out of there. And then we need hearings. We need to see what happened, because this is the most ignoble, catastrophic failure in the history of our republic.
And your website, is it thegreatcampaign.org?
Yep, thegreatcampaign.org, the Vulnerable People Project. Our mission is to stand with the most vulnerable people in the world. There are moments of greatest vulnerability. We were in Sudan during the genocide, Iraq during its collapse, nose-to-nose with ISIS. We're in Afghanistan, but we've never seen anything like this, and nothing could have prepared us for what's happened over the past.
Well, Jason Jones, keep up the great work, and I know it's a horrible time right now for the things that you guys are seeing and the people you're caring about, but we will keep everybody in prayers, and hopefully we can hear some positive news out of this and no more attacks,
Yeah, we pray. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for joining us. And Jason Jones' organization, again, if you want to check out the Vulnerable People Project that he's alluding to, these folks that are helping people, the women and children in Afghanistan, go to thegreatcampaign.org to learn about how they're standing with vulnerable individuals in this terrible time. So, there's so much noise and confusion, like he was saying. The media is so dubious, it's so ridiculous. These are people who, they're just activists. And I don't know why they are wrong on almost everything. They don't get the weather right, I guess. Is that the one thing that the media gets now? I don't know. Everything you hear out of these people. I mean, I was just watching local Florida politics, and you hear these little reporters in these local news stations, and they sound like they're just breathing heavy, and they're talking about, I'm going to get you Ron DeSantis, I'm going to get you. It's like, what? Are you a joke? You pathetic blogger hack? What did you this is not the role of a journalist. And they're so unself-aware of the fact that they are media hacks for special interests, and they don't even seem to have any self-awareness. Say, wait a second, we're such a dubious, trash, fringe, source of information. Fringe, not mainstream. I'm not going to use that word. They are not mainstream. The vast majority of this country does not accept the dumb, idiotic groupthink that these media outlets are stuck in. They just don't. They don't. So that's fringe. They are fringe. Their ideas are fringe. Their shrillness and their attitude is fringe. I mean, they just spend their entire time attacking Ron DeSantis because he doesn't want to force preschoolers to wear masks. In the most formative years, you think about when you're a kid, we don't know, and we probably do, but I mean, I don't personally know the full extent of what damage that does to children to cover their whole little faces when they're developing. 2, 3 years old. How many years are they going to do that where they don't see facial expressions? 50% of communication is nonverbal. You're basically blinding human development to be able to watch cues, to know how to engage people and not be like in a zombie state for the rest of your life. Then these stupid journalists, they shill for this stuff like that's their career. Their job is to push for special interests. Who wants this? Teachers' unions. They want to make money off of doing the least amount of work, and they're mad at Ron DeSantis because he was going against their desire to keep the school shut down. They wanted to sit on their tails all day and do even less work to help your kids learn, sitting on Zoom all day and giving garbage Foucault-based French postmodern ripoff curriculum. This is garbage. Right? And so they're mad and they're trying to make him look bad because he dares to give people a choice. And I hear people say they're so mad and angry at him. They're always wanting to scapegoat people who defy their little sacred rituals of the state. And that some people just have a cultic devotion to the state and their little bureaucrats. And they always say, the science says, and they don't know anything about science. And they don't. And so that's what I'm saying is that you can't trust this same media complex when they're lying about the wars for 2 decades. And they're lying about how effective their withdrawal plan would be. Total lie. I'm tired of listening to these liars. These are fringe, discredited, garbage media outlets. Meanwhile, I mean, again, they say, oh, we follow the science in the media. And I'm connecting these issues together for a reason. Because the media, both left and right and independent, they don't tie these things together much. They talk about foreign policy stuff and war over here, and then they shift and they say, now let's talk about what you must do as we nation build your health here domestically by telling you to take experimental products for your 6-month-old baby, even though their own studies out of Israel show it's got very little effectiveness at stopping the spread or the viral load. Even their own data says that. And yet they want to tie that to being able to get into society and keep a job. These are heartless, cruel, manic people. It's a mixture because some of the people with leadership, they're just cold and heartless. And they're just ruthlessly trying to consolidate power for their friends and cronies to have an easier time consolidating wealth in their hands without having to have competition. That's why Amazon and Walmart have done so well as small mom and pops have been shut down all over this place. That wasn't an accident. That was just the way that the politicians rigged their response to help their buddies at multinational corporations. And the liberals, the so-called bleeding heart liberals, have been cheerleading the consolidation of corporate power, destroying the middle class, destroying people in poverty, crippling people's mental health. They don't care. They just want to feel right. They want to feel like they're better than you. And it's sick that people are so deranged in a state of desire to want to lord over their neighbor that they will destroy everything about society to do so.
It's a nihilism we haven't seen unleashed in this society. And all they do is say, we're just following the science, this brain-dead, stupid mantra that doesn't know anything about science. You want to talk about science? How about sciencemag.org? Science Magazine. Having SARS-CoV-2 once confers much greater immunity than a vaccine, but no infection parties, please. By Meredith Wadman. The natural immune protection that develops after a SARS-CoV-2 infection offers considerably more of a shield against the Delta variant of the pandemic coronavirus than 2 doses of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, according to a large Israeli study that some scientists wish came with a "don't try this at home" label. The newly released data shows people who once had a SARS-CoV-2 infection were much less likely than vaccinated people to get Delta, develop symptoms from it, or become hospitalized with serious COVID-19. And this destroys, as other studies have suggested before them, like the Cleveland Clinic study we talked about. This destroys their entire argument for having vaccine mandates to go here to there. Totally eviscerates their whole thing. And it eviscerates their desire to keep, kids locked up forever and masked up forever. Because if this thing does become endemic and we see it coming every cycle, they're going to want to lock down this place for the rest of our frickin' lives. We've got to put this stupid hysteria to bed. And I don't know what it will take. Because it's like a mind virus that eats out people's brains and common sense. And they just gleefully band together with their Borg hive mind frequency. We in it together. They all use the same critical theory language that right on cue. At the same time, they're into this biomedical tyrannical regime that they want to build forever. They all do stuff on cue. It's like you just snap a button and they all talk about, woke language. They never talked about this 2 years ago. You go back and look at Don Lemon clips from 2009 and 10, and he sounds more conservative than Bill O'Reilly and Donald Trump on self-reliance and cleaning up yourself and not blaming other people. But so, you know what I mean? So they just on cue, they just shift their little tone, like on demand. Millions of people just start using words like whatever, all the little language, fragility, toxic, so like you're toxic. They like to use so in front of every word, every sentence now, and they think they're cool. They think they're sophisticated. They're not. They're embarrassing. They don't know how to read this story about sciencemag.org. They just watch whatever garbage, trash, big pharma owned puppet media report tells them, and they just say, okay, I obey. And I'm tired of this stuff because it's hurting people, and we have to fight back. We have to fight back with the facts, and we have to stop them in terms of destroying the rule of law. We have to fight them in the courts. We have to fight them with civil suits, whatever it takes to destroy this attack against human civilization. This manic insanity that sociopathic politicians are exploiting, like the creeps that they've always been. The study demonstrates the power of the human immune system. This is Science Magazine for all the stupid hack journalists that want to say, follow the science. They don't know anything about science. They just blabber like fools. It's embarrassing. I'm tired of these people trying to lord over and bully people's lives. That's why it just drives me to such a fed up state. Because you don't need to be messing, it's one thing to isolate very immune compromised people who have been eating the toxic vegetable oils their whole life because of our stupid government. Okay? If you have comorbidities and you've been eating like the food pyramid tells you to, and you're older and you have things, you need to be careful. Okay? Thanks to Fauci's idiotic funding of this lab that unleashed this thing, you need to be careful. But that being careful also means understanding real science, not the trash garbage spewed out of that jerk, Fauci, who wants us to live like Australians where we get 1 hour of time outside of our prison cells in our homes. You want to live that way? Who in the world wants to live that way? And again, there's like the self-flagellating self-hatred going on in Australia where people are gleeful for this. They feel like they need to atone for, I don't know, too much beer? What? I don't know. They feel guilty. So they need a savior. And so there's all these demonic, wicked imitations of the real Savior, Jesus, that pop up that say, you atone for your wickedness. You atone for your decadence. You atone for your arrogance, your waste of your life, your slothfulness. Because slothfulness is not just laziness. It's about working for the pursuit of working. It's almost like workaholics are actually really guilty of slothfulness because they're more obsessed with material possession than actually working to achieve virtue and take care of your family and those around you. So maybe all these things makes people want to self-flagellate. And so some folks in Australia, they think that they're like, they need to have time out. But that kind of mass mental disorder of feeling like you need to stay imprisoned in your house for basically every year, I guess, because this thing's probably going to come back like a lot of viruses in the coronavirus family do. These people, like, this is the madhouse running, the inmates running the asylum or something. This is insanity that allow this type of stuff to happen. So it's time for us to make a change. It's time for us to reject this imperial wickedness, and let's build a community that actually loves our neighbors and takes care of things around us instead of wasting our time listening to these garbage fringe media outlets. Back in a moment.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney spokeswoman.
David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. So this article, I'm just tying this back in because you need to remember the big takeaway from this week and the last few weeks is that the same little role-playing gimmick where people put on little fancy uniforms
And they say, we are Pentagon. We spend $1 trillion. We expert. We. It's like, you're just a human being. Okay. And when you look at the numbers, you look at the math, you look at the logic of what they're trying to do, take people who have not had a Christian tradition of concern for the least of these and stuff. They have a different religious background that hasn't been as infected by Western obsession with victims, both the good versions and the bad versions of this. Not being culturally chauvinistic, I'm being objectively analytical of what the difference in cultural traditions manifest as. And then to have these DC liberals who, they don't want to punish people, for any kind of sexual attack. They want to make all these different rules that get people, basically, I'll put it this way. To get a country like DC that gives people first-time nonviolent offenders like Craig Cecil, who's doing body work on trucks moving marijuana, he gets a life sentence. But then molesters and pedophiles like Jeffrey Epstein, they get like 6 months and a halfway house. Okay, so it's a different culture than what we have in what they have over there in the Taliban in terms of how they deal with justice issues. It's a different culture and how they deal with, over here, they want to have it mandatory. So if you just see that, I saw a clip where people in New York, Brooklyn or somewhere were saying, they want to be able to take kids away. They think it should be that you take a kid away from a family if the kid watches, gender ideology and wants to change their gender at I think some of the people were saying that should be 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old. They should do that. Take the kid away from the parents if he wants to be or she wants to be a different gender and they don't want to go along with the idea. That's a different culture than Afghanistan, okay? We have a society where we are concerned with football players getting concussions. We are sensitive to things like violence like that. Over there are some places they stone women for having, relationships sex out of marriage. Okay, it's a different culture. But you had con artists putting on, these little costumes and telling you, we're going to make it a really great bastion of democracy. Then you had George W. Bush using his little Christian language, even though he has nothing to do with imitating Jesus as far as his life record has shown. You have this guy selling you on why it's a Christian thing to go off into this place. Meanwhile, he lets the, bin Laden family and Saudi rich folks leave right after 9/11. Only flight allowed to leave, remember? Did everything he could to kiss their tails. This is what such a big tough guy he is, huh? Bunch of fake little puppets we've been electing. It's embarrassment. It's humiliation for any country to have to be run by such incompetent, soulless idiots that were paraded left and right. And then, so, we have to learn from this moment and say the same experts that tell you every day, just another trillion, guys. They laugh all the way to the bank. These stupid suckers, they're idiots. They're laughing at you because you keep putting up with this crap. You keep voting for these stupid Rubios, Rick Scotts, all these people that want warmongering in perpetuity. They're laughing at you all the way to the bank. They go to their French laundry restaurants without masks, and they cash their checks for endless wars to make Afghanistan a French postmodern paradise. That's ridiculous, guys. Wake up. Hour 2 for A Neighbor's Choice will be here in just a moment. Stay with us.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park, Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. It's already Saturday in Kabul, the deadline for the U.S. to wind down operations in Afghanistan now just a few days away, and the Pentagon is calling them the most dangerous days.
The White House says the evacuation operation in Afghanistan continues despite warnings that a terror attack is likely in Kabul. Press Secretary Jen Psaki says the evacuation figures the White House has provided twice a day this week will start to decrease as the troop withdrawal plays out.
Those numbers will go down in the next couple of days, and you should anticipate that. That is as a result of the retrograde process that needs to take place. But also, I will note that, of course, force protection is front and center and is vital to the mission.
Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
Yesterday's deadly terror attack killed 13 U.S. service members and injured 18 others, along with dozens of Afghans killed. Today, Army Major General Hank Taylor says it is the hardest day for military families learning of those killed.
This is a devastating time for these Gold Star families, a title no one wants to hold, but we absolutely hold in the utmost respect.
On Capitol Hill, both Republicans and Democrats asking for more answers about that terror attack. The CDC showing the Delta variant has fueled more than 1 million new COVID cases in just the past week. The U.S. government today also releasing its unclassified report on the pandemic's origins.
The Director of National Intelligence Office report says the first known COVID-19 cases started in Wuhan, China around November of 2019. U.S. health experts say there is little evidence that it was developed as a biological weapon, but there is less confidence that it was not genetically engineered. Two U.S. agencies saying there's not enough evidence to decide either way.
ABC's Andy Field. The Gulf Coast prepping for Hurricane Ida. New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell already ordering mandatory evacuations in flood areas. You're listening to ABC News.
Ad paid for by CompleteCar.com.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to the COVID crisis, we are announcing a low-cost extended service plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay nothing for auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay nothing for auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-549-1980. Now. Drivers who are covered by this auto protection will not have to pay for a covered repair bill again. This auto coverage is at an all-time low, much lower than what dealerships are charging. Additionally, drivers who activate this auto coverage today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and free rental car at no additional cost. Call for your free quick quote today. 800-549-1985. 800-549-1985. What do you have to lose? Again, 800-549-1985.
Health experts say half of the adolescents in the U.S. are now vaccinated. That comes as schools are grappling with mask rules. In Florida, where cases are surging, the governor vowing to appeal a judge's ruling today, saying he overstepped his authority when he banned mask mandates in schools.
A Florida judge overruling Governor Ron DeSantis and saying that school districts may impose mask mandates. The judge ruling that DeSantis overstepped his authority by banning the mandates. A group of parents had sued, claiming that DeSantis' order was unconstitutional and could not be enforced. Leon County Circuit Judge John Cooper's decision came after a 3-day virtual hearing and after at least 10 Florida school boards voted to defy DeSantis and impose mask requirements with no parental opt-out. Dave Packer, ABC News.
Hawaii is launching a new push to get the island's longest residents to trust the vaccine. It comes as Hawaii is overwhelmed with a surge in COVID cases.
Hawaiian leaders are coming together, calling on Native Hawaiians to get vaccinated. They make up about 21% of Hawaii's population. Many have a long distrust of the government and have refused to get vaccinated.
Native Hawaiians represent the largest percentage of infections in this wave. And if we don't take action now, we will represent the largest percentage of deaths.
ABC's Alex Stone reporting. You're listening to ABC News.
Your nose is the body's air filter, the first line of defense against airborne allergens, bacteria, and viruses. You wash your hands to protect your health. Now you can clean your nose with Navage. Online at Navage.com. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
What? Just 15 seconds to talk about Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea? That smooth taste of real brewed tea with just the right kick of alcohol? What? We started already. Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea. Look for it in the bright yellow cans.
Twisted Tea Brewing Company, Cincinnati, Ohio. Please drink responsibly.
I'm Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
News Talk 1040 Tampa Bay weather forecast.
Alan Archer at the News Talk 1040 WHBO Weather Center. We're watching on our Doppler radar showers and scattered thunder showers advancing in from the southeast. 65% here this afternoon with a high 93, 45% tonight at 77. With the weekend 50% Saturday, 65% Sunday. Chance of storms mainly afternoon and evenings with highs 91. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer for News Talk 1040 WHBO.
This portion of the upcoming amazing broadcast is brought to you by the law firm of Catania & Catania, award-winning personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys, serving Tampa Bay families for over 28 years.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Granoski. So glad to be with you again for another hour of our news and commentary today. We just heard from a lot of great guests in the previous hour, and we're going to continue to see more guests provide amazing analysis as you continue to be our neighbor through this journey of growing and learning together, thinking through problems from a fresh perspective. That's what we've come to expect on this show, a different kind of frame, one that's refreshing, one that is exciting, one that is liberating, right? Because it's very miserable to live in the mental prisons that the failed fringe media want us stuck in. Hating people, wanting everybody who you don't agree with to go to prison. I mean, these are miserable people. And that's a lot of emotional energy to invest in something that every day you savor the thought of seeing your person that doesn't agree with you. You want 16 masks on the kids for the rest of their life, and they're like, no, I don't agree with that. And they're like, put them in prison. That's what these garbage fringe media outlets have created in this culture. That kind of aggressive mindset. Madness. And I feel bad for folks who are caught in that mental prison, because once you free yourself from that mental prison of hate, where these people, go look. You think I'm exaggerating? Go look up every day in these failed blue enclaves. You'll see them on Twitter and other platforms constantly talking about how they're waiting down every second at the thought that they can see Ivanka Trump in prison. That's all they talk about, like the former president's daughter or his children. They want to see them suffer. I've never thought of that. I don't agree with their policies. I never even think in once like, oh, I'd love to see Hillary Clinton's, daughter or whatever. And I mean, who's in prison? That's a very dominant, normal, standard way of thinking about the world. If you are part of the TV party, you get your reality from the garbage hacks in TV land. That's just how they. That's just another day, and that's exhausting. Because when you're caught up in a snare of scandal, in which you're preoccupied with being obsessed with what your rival is up to, when you're caught up in that kind of snare, it's not a healthy. It doesn't feel good. It's exhausting. Makes you anxious. Makes you just never be able to. Breathe easy, or stop and smell the roses, enjoy the sunshine. You're just always filled with bitter rage and so forth. And so that's why we want to continually help nudge people out of that mental prison for their own health. Not to mention that being in that mental prison of groupthink, it leads to very violent, horrible policies around the world and here at home. So it's in everybody's interest. It's a win-win solution
for all of us to get out of these mental prisons that politics put us in. And so that's the thing, is that, that's what we're battling. That's why I give you not just segments about politics, but we dive into nutrition so that you can take care of your health, take care of your mind, take care of your body, your immune system. These things matter. And that's one of the things that we, never want to take lightly here. Because if you don't have your health and you don't have your mental health, what are you going to do? It doesn't matter what liberties you have or whatever, or how your economy is doing. You're just not going to be well off. So it's good to see Science Magazine report on what we've been reporting from all the other studies, that natural immunity seems to be the superior place for long-term defense from this pandemic. But that's certainly not going to get the corrupt, manic media to talk about that. They'll probably censor and attack if they haven't done it already. That Science Magazine coverage of the Israeli study, 70,000. So was it 76,000 people they studied? Very knockout study. And so we'll see how they'll spin and lie about that. At some point, you've got to get over serial liars, okay? And a lot of people, that's why they get caught up with bad relationships and con people, is they just get taken for a ride and they don't know how to stop and say, wait a second, this is just a madhouse of lies. And that's ultimately what DC is swimming in right now, a madhouse of lies. The FDA does not have your health in mind. They don't know what food is. They've approved all this garbage into your body that should never be considered food. And liberals believe if we just give them a bigger budget, that'll make, give me a break. They have no conception of human nature. You give humans such obscene power and privilege and monopoly with no competition to hold them in check, no skin in the game for getting things criminally wrong. You think that's going to make them better by giving them bigger budgets? Give me a break. It's never worked that way. That's all government has ever done, is get bigger budgets for every agency that pretends to be able to run your life for you. And all they do as they get a bigger budget is make your life more miserable. And the thing about government is the harder it fails, the more they want you to pay for it. The harder they fail at something that they said they were going to take care of, the more they make you pay for it. They scapegoat you. They take your liberties away. They make you hate your neighbor. They make you miserable. They destroy your economy. They screw over your small business. They censor your information. Yeah, I'm looking at Facebook now. They've censored that study that shows natural immunity is superior. I just saw they put a flag on the link to the Maccabee and Tel Aviv University study. These guys are garbage. This is garbage, fascist crap happening in real time every day. This should not be considered lightly. This should be laughed at and rejected 100%. 100%. I could do it the easy way and talk in vague ways, the way other people in talk radio do, so they can have access to these social media cartel platforms. Don't get into the facts so that the little algorithms don't pick up the terms or whatever. I could do it that way, but what's the point of that? What is a profit to gain the world but to lose your soul, to be a sellout, mediocrity, safe mediocrity? That's how you get syndicated by big, syndications and so forth like that. The quick way. You just keep it nice and vague and talk about low taxes. Or you do like a lot of the Republican hacks are doing, where they're saying, hey, the problem with Afghanistan, we need to stay in there longer. Yeah. They want to give more power to the same Pentagon that's telling people right now that, if you voted for Trump, you're, on a potential terror, concern list or something, calling them insurrectionists. And they want to give that group of bureaucrats more power to go play with more weapons and so forth and other people's lives in Afghanistan. Do these conservatives have any legitimacy? They're so fake. And so much of the, conservative media is still filled with these voices like that they don't offer any real alternative to the left. They're just the designated losers, right? So that's the problem, is that we've got too much nonsense. Too much of our time is being drawn into the stupidity that is politics. All of the FDA decision makers are past or future employees of big pharmaceutical companies. That's just how it works. That's how it's always worked. So when you see, like a meme I saw where they show FDA commissioner from 2017 to 2019, and then he goes to work at Pfizer, and it doesn't matter whether you elect a Democrat or Republican, that's just what they do. It's a revolving door deal. And you just don't want to be spending your time with those kind of hacks to make your life decisions about what's going to take care of your body or what's the best thing for your family. And so you're not going to get that on the fake left and right media. You're not going to get that kind of perspective. They're just going to say, get our team in and we will put in another hack who works for revolving door relationships with pharmaceutical companies who will screw over your health. When will the Stockholm syndrome that both parties people seem to have, when will it ever end? When will they say, they've done enough. I'm not listening to this group anymore. There's almost like a magnetic inertia to groupthink behavior patterns. And it's almost like, well, I know they're crooked. I know the war machine is crooked, and what they tell me about what wars we can do and why we should do them, I know that's crooked. And I know that Big Pharma is in bed with FDA, to say the least, and CDC and NIH, but we've just had them so long, and they just look so authoritative with their media blitz and all of their, constant, advertising taking place from their media, always saying their, words on cue, always painting their narratives in your mind on cue every day. I know you see all of that, and yet you still say, well, but I still want to trust them because so many people else, so many other people trust them too. At some point, that inertia has to stop, right? That's my point. At some point, we have to say, yeah, it's just enough. We've just had enough. We need to abolish the FDA. We need to abolish the CDC. They should be fired, every single one of these people. And any of the people who were good, go work in a real job doing real science instead of this hack garbage. Brought to you by Pfizer, or whatever other stupid hack pronouncement they want to make. We're going to take care of our health and our families, and they can go get real jobs. Back in just a moment on A Neighbor's Choice.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney spokeswoman.
Hello, this is David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code Neighbor, are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck on a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender. So yeah, that was Scott Gottlieb or whatever. He's an FDA commissioner from 2017 to 2019. Now he is with Pfizer. He's a special partner in New Enterprise Association, Inc.'s healthcare investment team. And so he's got this deal working with Pfizer. And then you go and look at this other story, biopharmadive.com says former FDA chief Hahn joins venture firm that launched Moderna. Stephen Hahn, the former FDA commissioner under Trump. So he's joining a venture capital firm, Flagship Pioneering, as its chief medical officer, helping to lead a program focused on preventative medicine and health security. Oh. So, you've got both of those guys with Trump. One goes to Pfizer, the other one goes to Moderna. And then people say, hey, all we got to do is get that guy back in, and that'll fix all of our problems. Look, it's obvious to me that there's arguments about why Trump would not be as bad as Biden, given what we've seen, okay? But in terms of, he actually did criminal justice reform. Biden does nothing. He's actually had a better plan to exit, it seemed like, than what Biden's done, which has no plan at all. He actually cares about challenging the globalist order of these, despicable Davos-type losers, at least rhetorically, which is valuable because culture is what drives politics. So, but still, the idea that that's going to be the biggest solution that you focus on is laughable. Because you got this revolving door relationship happening when that team's in power too. And that's the problem. That the system is the problem. The way it's set up is so fundamentally corrupt that until you're willing to really neutralize the power of these unconstitutional agencies dictating to our country, 50 states, with diverse people, diverse ideas, diverse cultures, until you're ready to let go of that imperial dictate mindset, none of this stupid left versus right stuff is going to do anything of value to your life. It's just not. And the sooner we realize that, the better we'll all be. And that's why, a lot of people are saying this is a big turning point. The Republican candidate Joe Kent, he's running for U.S. House in Washington. He says the military industrial complex, he's also a former veteran. His wife was killed in Syria
after Trump said, get out of Syria, and remember all those stories you were hearing about what came out later? That people in the military bureaucracy were undermining what the president said to get out of Syria. They were saying, yeah, we moved troops out, but they were still in. That kind of lawless anarcho-tyranny. Well, that's what led, apparently, from what I understand, to this gentleman losing his wife over there, because she was over in Syria when they were supposed to have people out by then. He says, the military-industrial complex kept us at war for nearly 2 decades. We must force the resignations of those responsible for the bloodshed in Afghanistan. And you notice how much of a chicken hawk Nancy Pelosi is. Remember how best friend she is with Liz Cheney. And yet she does nothing to challenge the Liz Cheneys because she's part of it. She's the same team for the bloodshed and chaos in the insurrection chaos going on around Afghanistan because of their dubious fringe policies and their disasters from it. She does nothing. But she puts Cheney on the commission to try to demonize people who were at the Capitol, to call them like terrorists and insurrectionists when most of them were just being stupid, ridiculous, going along with the crowd. And who was running the crowd? That's what we need to find out. Because it's very easy to manipulate crowds once they're whipped up. But you see how they have a priority and always dividing and conquering? I wonder where that came from. Divide and conquer. That's how tyrants get their position in history. And as I mentioned earlier, again, we say, all we got to do is get that. Some people say, I don't say this. All we got to do is get the other team back in and they'll fix it up. But look, McMaster, H.R. McMaster, Max Abrams is saying that McMaster is saying the ISIS attack may have been committed at the behest of the Taliban. He wants Americans to believe they're allies rather than enemies. CNN, you are spewing pure misinformation about national security matters. They're spewing misinformation about health matters. Come on. Tie it back to the same thing. This is what I'm tired of, this specialism. I know, I get the point. People want to talk about a topic in depth, but you've got to connect it back to the systemic failure of this whole expert lie con game that DC's selling us. They're just as wrong about what you should do for your health. They don't tell you to take vitamin D and get sunshine. They don't tell you to avoid vegetable oils, which are the worst thing you could possibly be putting in your body if you're worried about diseases and diabetes and all these different comorbidities everybody talks about. They tell you to do the opposite of what is real and scientifically true. And yet we still don't connect the dots, it seems, because there should be an uprising right now politically. You should see polls, 80% want everybody fired in D.C. It needs to be hot right now. Across the board. I see sleepiness. I see, let's put our America First people in there so they can have revolving door relationships. Like people like McMaster lying. McMaster used to say that Assad was the big state sponsor of ISIS in Syria, and now he's pinning the presumed ISIS attack in Afghanistan on the Taliban. This is what absolute garbage propaganda looks like. CNN hosts this garbage while claiming to fight misinformation. CNN is nothing but trash information. They're the most dubious fringe group on TV, apparently. That's from Max Abrams. But that's the kind of thing you've got to see, that they're intellectually and morally bankrupt, and then let go of listening to their misinformation. But stay with us. We'll be back in a moment.
weekdays 9 to noon.
President Trump at CPAC.
We will protect and defend our cherished American legacy and freedom.
The Chris Plant Show.
For ourselves, for our children, and for every future generation, my fellow Americans. Our movement is the greatest in American history, and it has just begun.
Yeah, that's why YouTube wants to cancel it.
Chris Plant.
Because they don't want competition for the Democrat Party.
9 to noon weekdays. News Talk 1040 WHBO.
The State Department says 300 U.S. citizens have been evacuated from Afghanistan in the last 24 hours and that it's working to get about 500 more out soon.
We're actively working to evacuate remaining staff, and we have been in direct contact with them.
Spokesman Ed Price says the vast majority of diplomatic staff and their immediate families have either been evacuated or are currently at the airport. More than 170 Afghan nationals are now confirmed dead after what the Pentagon says was one suicide bombing yesterday near the airport. The White House says President Biden plans to speak with the families of the 13 U.S. service members who were killed. New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell is declaring a state of emergency for the city ahead of Hurricane Ida's arrival.
All year long, we plan for this.
She's calling for mandatory evacuations of anyone who lives outside the city's levee protection system. The markets ended the week higher, the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, both closing again today at record highs. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
News Talk 1040 Tampa Bay weather forecast.
Alan Archer at the News Talk 1040 WHBO Weather Center. We're watching on our Doppler radar showers and scattered thunder showers advancing in from the southeast. 65% here this afternoon with a high 93, 45% tonight at 77. With the weekend 50% Saturday, 65% Sunday. Chance of storms mainly afternoon and evenings with highs 91. I'm meteorologist Alan Archer for News Talk 1040 WHBO.
Looking at the comments here on our live stream, A Neighbor's Choice is back. I'm David Gronowski. You can call in at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040. Reading Creature from Jekyll Island now. The commenter says, it's about the political and economic origins of the Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve Act was enacted just before the First World War. Federal Reserve is key to quantitatively easing and making endless wars profitable. If goods and services were in any way proportional to the money supply, saving money wouldn't be punished with inflation. That's a great book. Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin. We got to see if we can get Mr. Griffin on the show. He's been at that topic for a long time. And, he's got some great insights on that issue. It would be a really great discussion to have. I think the Federal Reserve is the lifeblood of this imperial mindset of printing money out of thin air. I mean, look what they've just done with that scam of the infrastructure bill, trillions of dollars, just goes to their hack friends that got them elected with the money. When will people wake up? This is the nature of politics. It doesn't get better. People say, oh, all you got to do, you hear this kind of dumb take, all you got to do is get money out of politics. That's what a lot of liberal type folks like, that idea, right? Get money out of politics. Oh, okay. It's so dumb. I mean, even if you got, you banned super PACs and all this stuff, it's so naive. I mean, you've got to look at these media companies. These media companies are PR firms for political policies. And those media companies, they have a revolving door friendship and relationship with the government bureaucracies. You see what CNN and MSNBC do. They hire all these former FBI directors and stuff that were doing all this corrupt stuff, trying to spy on Trump and all the things they did, trying to arrest everybody who looked at him. So, these media companies, if you banned all donations at all, it would all go through the media companies even more. And they're totally going to dump their billions in dollars to influence the election as they do all the time. You saw what they did. You saw what the Time magazine did. There was a coordinated effort to fortify the election against Trump. They said that with glee. And they coordinated it with their riots and all their horrible, gaslighting of the American people. Little schemers. They scheme in vain, though, because all their ideas and all their ideological aspirations are falling the hell apart. And it's laughable how pathetic the globalist little vision for the world, it's falling apart. But it's not laughable because of all the horrible suffering that has to happen. Both the biomedical failures that they've made, nutrition science failures are the biggest. See, that's the thing. When you know to the full extent how bad their vegetable oil experiment has been and suffering, how many millions of people have diseases and suffering from that, it makes what they've done with the COVID disaster that they've most likely, will be exposed to having been destroyed so much of our ability to fight this thing off better by all their policies. But my point is, looking at how bad government has failed with the vegetable oil misinformation campaign and subsidy campaign that they've been engaged in for generations. When you look at the total body count of unnecessary, horrible deaths and diseases from that, past and present and future, versus it will make the corona disaster that they've done look like small potatoes in terms of the full suffering and damage in terms of diseases. I guess the coronavirus thing also has their lockdown parts and things like that have really screwed over the economies too, which is another level of disaster. But in terms of the actual failure to avert, suffering from illness, the vegetable oil thing is quite a bigger disaster on several orders of magnitude beyond what they've done with this pandemic. JustTheNews.com says the death toll in Kabul terror attack reaches 182, including the 13 U.S. service members, as evacuation resumed. So as of Thursday, roughly 1,000 Americans still needed to be evacuated, officials said. Let's turn to some other stories here in the news. Just the News also reports Arizona Attorney General orders Maricopa County to turn over routers to election audit or lose state funds. Mark Bronovich says county's refusal to comply with state Senate subpoena violates Arizona law. He's ordered Maricopa County to comply with the state Senate subpoena and turn over its election routers to auditors or risk losing millions of dollars in state aid. Concluded Thursday that the request for the routers as part of the audit of the state's November 2020 elections was lawful and upheld by the courts, and the county's refusal to comply with was a violation of state law. He warned any further delay by the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors would result in a substantial financial penalty. Maricopa County gets about $700 million in state funds a year. The county board said it is aware of the Attorney General's decision, and board members will meet with their legal counsel and determine an appropriate path forward. Again, why are they refusing to turn over these routers, if there's nothing to hide? I mean, that's how government talks to us all the time, right? Oh, we can surveil you and have unlimited search and surveillance of everything you've ever said. What are you going to be afraid of if you didn't do no the wrong? That kind of bully. But this is just a router. This isn't, illegal, unconstitutional, fascist surveillance of everything you say. We're just trying to see the router so we can make sure that these so-called public servants are not serving somebody else except for the public, right? Why can't we have accountability without all this kind of shenanigans? If they've got nothing to hide, they should be giving that stuff up as soon as it was asked for. But again, they get to benefit from a two-party machine that doesn't care most of the time about the facts, and a media that just spins constant 24/7 propaganda, gaslighting, and lies for whatever they want that gives people power in terms of those who are in their ideological corner. So that's the thing that we have in this time today, is that we're not able to have accountability with our political system because we have this blanket of interference constantly being run by the media. You know, they come in there and they run noise and confusion, and it gets lost, and the truth gets lost in that noise. And so that's one of the things that, you know, we need to do more than ever, which is why I'm doing this project in the first place, is to have a better media discourse. To have an honest media conversation. Not to be stuck on elections and party politics, but to have an honest and robust media discussion. You know, in Scott, I mean, you see what's going on in Australia. They continue to pave the way for this biomedical fascism. Prime Minister Scott Morrison has confirmed that businesses, this is Sunrise in Australia, businesses can deny right of entry and service to unvaccinated Australians. So they want to create this scapegoat class worldwide for people that don't want to take these products. And people just say, go along, it'll be better. No, they won't. They will keep doing more and more. You'll have to get a booster to get your passport updated to get into the store once you go along with their paradigm. So this is something that we have to be, you know, mature enough and wise enough to see and stop it in its roots. It looks like it may be too late for Australia right now because they are fully clamped down. I mean, I can't even imagine living in a country, you know, we did it. Well, look, we had it pretty bad over here, but Florida, for the most part, opened up relatively quicker. But I can't imagine living in a country where you can only go outside for an hour a day. How the heck is that? And now you can't go and get your groceries or do anything if you don't take in a product, even though all the evidence is showing it's not that effective at this new variant, and the people who are getting the product are still having the same viral load and transmissibility. I mean, come on. This is such a blatant scam. That's the hard thing. What do you do when you got wise and smart people, but then you've got this big block of low info people who are just ready to do human sacrifice, scapegoating rituals on anybody who the people who manipulate them tell them to go after? They're like, you know, they sick them, go get them. They do this little thing. What do you do? It's a tough road to navigate, right? Because you've got this big block of people who just like the Borg. You just tell them anything, they believe it. I mean, they were going on a nationwide hunt down for, manhunt for a guy who sneezed in an elevator in Australia. And then we think that we're better than other cultures who do scapegoating, sacrifice mobs in past times. It's a joke. But how do you get into a situation where you have this large group of people who are just an unthinking, low info Borg waiting for, you know, this small group of bureaucrats and cronies with sociopathic type behavior patterns to just feed them all kinds of crazy stories to get them going wild and attacking people and stripping people of liberty and dignity and so forth. That's a tough fight. But it's probably basically, as I've mentioned before, most of the scenarios of human history. We just didn't have the type of tragedies or, you know, crises to expose this. in recent times. And when you have an ideology, this globalist ideology that wants to destroy textbooks, you're supposed to hate classical music, you're not supposed to learn about the founding fathers, it's very easy to see if we lose sight, and that's why it's important to teach people history. You don't have to agree with whatever the founding fathers did, but the ideas they were trying to go after, we cannot allow our children to lose memory of that. Because if they lose that memory, we don't have a country in that sense. If they don't know what it was that the founders were trying to fight for, the idea that your liberties and your right to your body and your right to have a trial and your right to have, a jury of your peers and your right to have powers given and reserved for you, even if they're not specified in the Bill of Rights. You look at the 9th Amendment, you look at the 10th Amendment. You talk about self-defense rights, First Amendment, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom to worship, freedom of a press. To have these things. And the freedom of press is being destroyed right now because you have this little false cartel of these social media sites who are literally destroying and eliminating alternative media. Deleting their posts and real, not even alternative, the mainstream media science, like Science Magazine and the 76,000 Israeli study that's being censored by that trash hack website, Facebook. That fringe garbage group. What is their problem? What do they want? What's their goal here? What does Mark Zuckerberg's group want? They want to censor real Tel Aviv University 76,000 study because they don't like the political implications of the study. This is fascist garbage. It's fascism because it's big business and big government together. This is such an important time to push back against this stuff as best as we possibly can and to make sure that we get our kids out of these failing government schools so that they don't end up, and we don't, because we, could happen before they're even adults at this rate of where we're going. But we're at a situation where people are allowed to have 1 hour out of their home in Australia, and your media is selling you the hero, Tony Fauci, who wants that for you. Liberty, tyrannical control of your life is right here. Begging to stay in your life for the rest of your life. As a commenter from Australia says, give an inch and they will take a mile. And they're over there in this mess right now. I don't even know what it's like to live in that kind of mindset. I mean, they did that little 15 days to slow the curve or whatever. And that was disgusting. Just through that. But to go through this perpetuity thing where they're saying we're not even going to put a date, we're just going to do this clamp down control, I can't even imagine. I don't want to imagine that because I don't want to draw that idea even into my mindset because it's repulsive. It's barbaric, it's brutish, it's vulgar, it's pathetic, it's uncivilized what these bureaucrats are doing. And, this is a big moment in history, whether we're going to just roll over and allow these failed bureaucrats and their crony billionaires to try to clamp down on life as we know it and smother us with their hellish, disastrous policies, or whether we're going to have a revival of beauty and goodness and truth and principles and memory. More important than remembering the founders is remembering what Jesus was doing, because most churches can't even teach what Jesus was up to. That's why they're rolling over and over again. But that's okay. I don't think Jesus needs them to get his message across. He just needs people with hearts of fire, with love and nonviolence and creativity and the personhood revolution that he stood for and developed and is developing through events in history today. Yeah, as the commenter says from Australia, they just keep extending it another 1 week, another 2 weeks. It's torture to do that to people. It's just disgusting. These people are drunk with madness. This is like a Shakespearean play. This is like Macbeth or something. These people are mad. Mad tyrants. But they're not even intelligent. That's the problem. You know? In some ways, that's probably the saving grace. Because if they were actually intelligent, with the level of madness and lack of, this kind of sociopathic, uncaring approach that they have for the implications of their dictatorial policies, could hurt a lot more people if they're actually competent people. So let's take a break and return on A Neighbor's Choice. We've got to fight for our liberty because it can quickly go away. And it also starts with your culture. You cannot send your kids to government schools where they're not going to teach them anything about the founders. So they don't know what jury nullification was designed to do, like Thomas Jefferson and John Adams talked about.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney spokeswoman.
Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com.
Neighbor's Choice is back. I'm your host, David Gronowski. You can call in at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040. And Luca, who's been on our show, he's from Australia. He lives there. Yes, suicide hotlines are going through the roof here. I hope the tides are turning, though. I sure hope so, too. I mean, we don't want to see what's happening in that country to be replicated like a plague around the world. A lot of people, including the hero who stupidly unleashed this virus by funding a dentist-level security lab in Wuhan. This stupid clown, he's just loving the idea of imitating China. I mean, well, I guess China too, but imitating Australia here. But there's a story here in the Daily Wire. Active duty retired naval intelligence members told they cannot disrespect Biden over Afghanistan debacle. Top leadership of the Office of Naval Intelligence informed active duty and retired service members they cannot condemn President Joe Biden amid the chaotic and now deadly pullout of American troops from Afghanistan. In an email from the ONI's chief of staff, members were reminded that per a uniform code of military justice in DoD directive clause, they cannot disrespect senior government leadership. This includes the president, vice president, Congress, the Secretary of Defense, and more. So they're really wanting to, I guess, keep everybody quiet as these guys make an absolute holy hell mess out of everything they touch, to the point where people are losing their lives for no reason. Meanwhile, here in Florida, there's a story that a judge has ruled against Florida in the school mask mandate fight. So it's a win for the crazies that want to keep masks on 2-year-olds. It's insane. Look, if you want to put a mask on, that's fine, but don't force that insane, neurotic groupthink hysteria onto your neighbor. That's the problem. These people just don't stop. They always want to push and coerce and force their neighbor to do what they want. Instead of allowing people to have choice, allowing people to decide how they want to do their life, they want to have this kind of bullying mindset. So let's see. We have a caller, Brittany from Tampa. Hey, Brittany, how you doing?
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I wanted to say my former husband was Special Forces, and he deployed to Afghanistan probably over 16 times over a period of years. And he got hit by an IED at some point, 2012, suffered traumatic brain injury, was very suicidal, wasn't a mean guy at all, was actually a very honorable person. He had told me how they were handing out guns and money to what they considered or hoped was trustful Afghans and training them, but then they'd see them turn around the next day fraternizing with the Taliban. And I said, well, why would you do it? He said, well, that's what we were told to do.
Wow.
So they largely follow orders, then they come back here, look back, have time to contemplate what they've done and how they've contributed, whether inadvertently or not. And then they become depressed, understandably so. I love your Freudian slip, by the way, about China. As far as the vaccines go, anyone, and I want to say this to anybody listening, please consider this. Any bully on a playground or anyone who's pushing something that hard, you have to consider that there must be something nefarious about it. This is common sense. It's like math. They've never pushed a vaccine like this before. We know that so-called Dr. Fauci was in cahoots creating this. Anyone who doesn't understand this was deliberately created to usher in the Great Reset. You can Google the Great Reset. It's on the World Economic Forum's website. You can see what's going on. It was all planned. It was like not killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It was killing about 20 birds with 2 stones. And the coronavirus, whatever it is, I don't think warrants bullying people into at best, this vaccine may sterilize people. This is my heartfelt opinion. At worst, it may be something, maybe it even shortens telomeres. Look up the word telomeres. You can Google this stuff. Everything is out there. The truth is out there, and I beg everybody to just look at the bigger picture. It's like if you look at a map and you just have a flashlight on one little area, you're not going to see as much. You need to expand and really contemplate everything. Everything is out there. I know a lot of stuff because of the people that I've been around.
Well, Brittany,
I'm so sorry.
I really appreciate your call. We're out of time, but I really appreciate you calling in, and I'm sorry to hear about your husband, but I appreciate you giving us that perspective there. It's very, very helpful.
Thank you. Love your show.
Thank you.
Bye.
That's it for A Neighbor's Choice, folks. You can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com.
News,
Godspeed.
talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park. Tampa Bay's all new news talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.